Thank you for joining A Shark's Perspective, the podcast with subject matter experts in marketing. If you as a marketer are driving consumers through a funnel, then you're likely very familiar with landing pages. But if you're driving traffic, then do they know where to go when they get there? Is there an arrow, so to speak, that specifically points them to where they need to go in order to continue down the funnel? The landing page is not new technology, but it is one where new technologies have progressed to allow remarkable insight into the experience. Think about all the options that seamlessly can fit onto a landing page today. However, ask yourself, do you know your customer and are you giving them exactly what they need? Amanda Simmons is the founder of Full Cup Creative, a creative design, development, and A/B testing firm with deep expertise in landing page optimization and conversion rate strategies. We'll discuss her point of view on the evolution of landing page design. So let's listen in on a landing page shark with Mr. Shark on this episode of A Shark's Perspective. Great. Amanda, thank you for joining us on A Shark's Perspective. I'm really glad to bring you on. I've had the pleasure of working with you, but I'd like you to first start out and tell us about your background and your career and what made you grow up when you were, a little girl watching Alabama destroy your Auburn Tigers, Roll Tide. Talk a little bit about what you went through from there to your career and how you got into Full Cup, starting Full Cup Creative.
Sure. I just have to say one thing. I'm a Auburn Tiger, so I have to say War Eagle to that. But when I was growing up in Alabama, I've always been a very visual learner, just had a lot of interest in everything going on around me. I didn't know that was going to translate into graphic design, but it became the perfect avenue for me. I like business. I love marketing, but to have that visual piece for me to translate my own artistry into work was just a great avenue for me, and I fell in love with it immediately. And so I graduated with graphic design and visual communication degree and got picked up by CNN International working for a show called Asia Business Morning and really doing graphics for that. Moved on to other digital agencies, Moxie Interactive being one of them, really loving our job, but really not knowing what this other piece that wasn't filling in for me was. And over the years, it's that quantifying our work, not just that it's beautiful and functional, but really what is the impact of it? And that's really, I really began to fall in love with digital marketing. Full Cup Creative started out as a traditional design agency, and it is focused to where we are 100% focused on creative and optimization. And it's an exciting, innovative field, and there's always something new to learn. It's always evolving. And it takes something that is our bread and butter and that we know how to do and elevates it to this scale where it is a tremendous performance vehicle that we can continue to refine and iterate. And that just makes it a very exciting field.
So let's talk then a little bit about how landing pages have evolved. It's not the newest technology, been around for quite a while. Over the years, though, they've obviously, a lot of the techniques have changed. They've evolved immensely. More people using these or less? I mean, what are you sort of seeing in the evolution of landing page optimization?
I don't think landing pages are going anywhere. I think their sophistication has grown tremendously over the years, even in the last decade. I think their credibility has grown. It used to be obviously just to collect the information, to raise their hand as a user, that they want more information, that we can get back to them. I really think companies now are starting to integrate them more into their overall marketing goals and channel optimization, and not just leaving these guys out there silos. And I really like to see it as a nurturing platform to not only get to know your customer better, but to have that engagement, that's that first handhold to get them to their ultimate goals as users. So I think they've grown tremendously. Technology has grown tremendously, and just the use and exposure of them has grown a lot more. I don't think we're going to see them go anywhere, but I'd like to see their complexity and sophistication increase.
So how do you do that with conversion rate optimization? I mean, with increasing the number of visitors that people get, what are the kind of steps you can take with a landing page?
I think with a landing page, you need to get the right traffic. One, you need to get to know your traffic. Who's coming to the page? What are they there to do? And really get more customer focused. So many times in marketing, digital marketing, people want to focus on their end goal, their goals, get the user through to it, fill out a form, make the call. But really what I want landing pages to do is stand in the gap of what they need instead of they get to the large.com and they can't really follow what they're looking for, using the landing page as a nurturing prospecting opportunity to give them exactly what they're looking for, match that query that they've come in on, give them some targeted information so they feel comfortable to take the next step.
And when you get that kind of data, I mean, let's talk a little bit about the things that have evolved over the years, like heat maps and being able to sort of
Yes.
read and then again, kind of talking to that customer and knowing is it dynamic messaging. You put something out on an ad, you got 5 different ads, somebody clicks on one, and you want that messaging to kind of reflect all the way through the process. Talk a little bit about some of the dynamic changes that are here to stay and things you like to see growing.
Well, I think it all starts with getting to know your customer. And that can be done through watching heat maps, looking for those leaks in the funnel, understanding what their real problem and pain points are so you can help solve them. So I think that's really where you have to start first, and where a lot of people miss is they just dive into a test or they dive into a new page. Really, that page needs to be rooted in all those things we just discussed. What are the customer's problems? What are their pain points? How can we help them? So that helps us get a more targeted page off the bat. As far as dynamic messaging, it really is that if a user types in a specific keyword and they get to a page that doesn't mention that, again, there's a disconnect. We're looking for that connected solution from the time they type that query until they get to the landing page. Oh, they do know what I need. Here's more information on my very specific topic, rather than sending them to a general page. Personalization and targeting are expected, and matching your user's expectation overall. What will I get on this page if I fill this out? What will happen after I take this next step? I think transparency is one of the biggest things we can do for our users to help encourage them to move down the funnel.
One of the things to get them in that funnel, kind of continue through, what are some of the ways that landing pages can help align kind of cross-channel messaging and creative for marketing campaigns? I know you've talked a lot of times about creative, especially with that graphic design background. I mean, it's, for a lot of people, they can have unrelated messages or unrelated ads. They see an ad that has red, they go to a landing page that has blue, and then you don't get the answer or the integration and conversation that you necessarily might like to have with a customer. Talk about ways that people should align that messaging so you can have more of a true, cross-channel feel with more synchronicity to it.
Yes. I think users really do, they're intelligent, and that intelligence needs to be supported rather than giving them huge topics. If they've typed in a specific keyword, we need to meet them at the level that they're researching. And the intelligence of carrying that keyword over to your page and being able to target either an entire new content section off of it, matching it in a headline, doing a visual match, that supports them where they are in their journey and gives them the information they need, specifically where they are. They may not be at the very top of the funnel, and they may have looked for your brand or the type of service before. So I think matching the intelligence of their query onto the page and supporting where they are in the funnel is one of the first things you can do to nurture the cycle overall. As far as how that spreads out across channels, I do think that larger companies tend to silo themselves by channel. So even the messaging and visual match as a company as a whole, having that conversation and then seeing how it splits out to each channel is important. But to match your display visual to your landing page visual is important. They need that security and credibility of the page matching what they just saw. Everybody gets that moment. If it's jarring, what happened? And we start to lose trust. So we want to build trust, build credibility with not only the visual match, but the message match, but also those social proofing, credibility. If your company has won awards or been around for a long time, selling those tactics on the page is really important for a holistic, rounded approach. So they start to feel more comfortable. They know why I'm here. They know what I'm looking for. Here's what the company can do for me, rather than it just being company focused.
Well, you see a lot of people, especially like me, that have the attention span of a flea. You have people that click on an ad, they go to a page, they get 3 phone calls, boss comes over, you got 4 other tabs open, you got 2 spreadsheets, a couple of emails come in, then you go back to an ad, could be a minute later or 10 minutes later, and it doesn't have that seamless, that seamless conversation where you, again, saw an ad that said red, go to a page that said blue. And I think even if you're watching a TV commercial and they see that ad, a lot of times you want them to click on the ad, go to the landing page, and still see that, some reflection of that commercial, whether it was
Yes.
a Google ad, a TV commercial, some other ad on some other web page, but it needs to be seamless because there's so much noise out there that people with attention spans like me can get distracted get distracted. And one of the things I've always said in sales is the confused buyer always says no. And so eliminating a lot of that confusion helps keep that funnel moving to where a customer will want to buy.
I completely agree. We get so much information on a daily basis, individually. Like you just talked about your example of got, 20 tabs open, calls coming in. We as humans are just trying to get as much done as we can, and we know what our tasks are. If your goal is, you have something to do on a website, you're about to purchase something, you've tried to check it off your list 10 times, you know what you need to do. It's hard to be on a page where there's 20 additional options when you just need one. So that's why targeting is so important, talking directly to the user. How can we help you where you are? And I think clearing out the clutter on the page is so many times it's not more is better. It's the right elements on the page that can build a really targeted personal experience that's high performance.
Well, and I recently heard it on another podcast. Some guy was talking. I thought it was a good point. He said something like, "I challenge anybody to have a focus and go to a social media page like Facebook. Be on there for a minute and remember what your focus is afterwards." And so that's that sort of constant feed. And you think of all the different types of noise of where brands are advertising, aligning that simplicity so people know what they saw and understand where they're going to find out more or to buy a product or inquire more is just really important. So let's talk about some of the ways too then that we can look at landing pages. I mean, some people do a landing page. If they click on an ad, you go to a landing page, you might see a short quiz. Some use microsites, with 3 to 5 pages. How does that kind of help consumers enter into the sales funnel, using those types of tactics rather than going to a full-blown main website navigation where even within a bigger website, people can get lost as to entering into that lead gen funnel?
Yes. I think that users need multiple ways to get things done. One of our main reasons in using different types of elements on a landing page is to get the user to self-select so we can learn more about them. We try to get as much pre-click information as we can, the keyword they came in on, type of campaign, obviously where that was referred from, so we can set it up. But once the user is on page and can give us more information specifically about what they're looking at, whether that be a tab click on a microsite or an assessment filling it out, we can then on the fly start to target that experience within the same experience for the user. So, for a microsite, I think that would be better suited for a non-branded user, someone who may not be as familiar with your brand and is higher in that funnel and might need more nurturing and more research to get it done. Whereas you may not need as much content for a branded user, someone who's ready to take action, who's looking for you specifically. We want to support all different types of users within those campaign buckets, but they can be used in different ways. Someone who needs more research might need a microsite. Someone who's ready to convert may need a one page with some social proofing and credibility that just pushes them to the point of action.
Walk us through what some of the most successful tactics and recommendations are that you see in optimization techniques that people either use well or don't use enough of. I mean, kind of hit on some of the successes and some mistakes, but maybe it's social proofing, A/B testing, bigger giant buttons so people know exactly where to go, videos that incorporate. I mean, there's so many different options now with basic landing pages to make them exciting to dull, but ultimately you're trying to get somebody to convert. So talk about some of the things you've seen that have worked extremely well and the ones that have not.
Well, I think there's so much of people just wanting to jump in and test. And I think we've got to back up and we've got to do more research and find the right test and get to know our audiences better. Using the right type of test on a landing page can help you understand your audience more so than just changing a button color or changing a hero image. Having the user engage with you and give you feedback real time allows us to then target the page more. So I like the use of logic back in where you can dynamically insert, content sections, videos on the fly that creates a really high performance page and really fruitful for the user as well. I think people don't use analytics enough and don't use heat maps enough to really start to look and pinpoint. We like to look at heat maps after, but really it's starting with what's happening on the page now, finding that leak in the funnel and building a test around that. That's where it should all start rather than we're so eager to run to testing. I think we should slow it down a bit and find the right test and get it out there. So I think analytics and research are underused in our world of testing. So really that needs to create more high-value tests and really find the more profitable test. A/B testing, of course, is great. We want to prove what we believe is the problem with the change that we're implementing. But then, again, allowing more users to self-select on a page has been really awesome for us because we can learn more about our user and then educate our client. So many times something will happen in paid search and we're doing great on this, but display is being completely ignored. Sharing more of those learnings is something I also would like to see more companies do so other channels can benefit from that. Even audience data, how they're performing on the page, what they like to engage with. So many times it's still left in, we believe our customers do this. But what we can really use landing pages for is that sandbox to learn more about our users and broaden that out, broaden our reach from that learning out into other silos channels.
So what are your thoughts on videos, adding those into pages?
Well, we're really focused on page speed. So I like a video in a desktop experience. I don't know right now with what we're seeing and more trimmed down mobile experience works better. But we are consumers of videos as humans. We know they work. I think it's just finding the right mix of where to put them. Do they need to be in the background? Does it need to be service focused, product focused, expectation focused? I think if it can nurture them in their journey and be timely and short, we could use them everywhere. But I think these large videos that are hard to navigate, just having video is not going to do it. It's like everything else in our business. It's where and why to use it.
Yeah, exactly right. And videos are, like you said, we consume video and it's growing exponentially every day. The problem is you don't want somebody to go to a landing page, get fixated on that video, hop over to 3 other YouTube videos, or want to find out, watch other videos, and then forget to, put their information in so that you can keep them going down the funnel. And I think part of it's also trying to figure out where to put it on the page. Is it on the thank you page, if you will? Is it on the first page? Where do you do it in that funnel is really important as well. What are some of the mistakes, the bigger mistakes that you see, other than just jumping to test? What are some of the fails, the hashtag landing page failures you've seen?
I think I go back to not learning enough about the audience.
Yeah.
And just assuming before you even get to the testing piece. Once you're at testing, not sharing the learnings. Again, different channels being siloed. At Full Cup Creative, we're really focused in creating multi-channel optimization programs and letting people benefit from that. Companies benefit from that. Let them learn more about their audience and benefit from those targeted optimizations that lift all channels up. I also think so many large companies are in silos, again, with the sharing across or optimizing in one section and not another. So, and then once they are testing, have those learnings been shared before another channel group starts their own optimization process. So at large companies, I think the silos really leave a lot of opportunity on the table.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more because to a consumer, they don't care what those silos are. They don't want to be confused when they get there. But one group could have one message. They could have, in a print piece, you could have one message in one graphic. You could have email have a similar message, but a different graphic. And in some other ad on social be completely different as well. But do sort of want to hone them in to remember, the same general message and same general imagery so that you can convert and move them through the pipeline.
And there's so many touch points too, Kenneth,
Oh,
that
absolutely.
we're touching, everything all the time. And if there's disjointed messages, the user's going to feel that. So I think the more continuity we can create across all those touch points, the more credibility we have.
I couldn't agree more. And so let's talk about, you brought this up earlier about testing, and I'm going to ask you a question about timing on testing. So what are you a proponent of as far as timing, the amount of time someone should use for doing a test for a page?
We look at confidence levels
Yep.
for that. We may have different types of tests. If it's a small change, typically we like to get to 95% confidence. But if it is a small change, or we have additional information that we believe they're moving in the right direction, maybe it's an 80 or 85% confidence test, depending on what you're testing. We like that good feeling of getting as high of confidence as we can before we call something. But if it is too slow, if it was not innovative enough of a test to produce a big change, we might pull that test, bring it back to the drawing board before we do it again, and come up with a more radical difference to get a higher confidence level
That's a
faster.
that's a great point, because you're half of it could be the amount of traffic you're sending to a page, and you're going to have to come up with some way to judge it depending on that.
Yes, and I really think that we need to be testing more overall, but it needs to be smart testing. And I think we need to put more research in before we dive into these tests. So I know we do like a pure form of testing. We don't want to change as many variables as possible on the page, but we want to produce a different enough experience that we do get a difference in behavior.
So what are some of the challenges that marketers have today with creating effective landing page strategies? You know, we've talked a little bit about poorly optimized messaging and maybe misaligned creatives, and I think attribution is a key piece we haven't
Yes.
really talked enough about yet. There's regulatory issues. There's so much types of content, and there's so much out there that you could put on a page today, whether it's badges, other social proofing, any of those kind of things that you can drop on your page, video, where to put the form. But what do you see some of the challenges that marketing professionals have today with you've got a project, you've got to go create a page. Talk about how to get one done effectively and efficiently quickly.
I would go back and look at your audience information. If you have profiles or personas, I don't believe there's one page that serves an entire audience. So I do think that people just want to put one page up that serves everybody. And what we've seen time and time again is that it doesn't. Maybe you could have different portions on the page that serve different audiences to better identify, but one page doesn't serve all audiences. So I think really getting down and taking the time to look at each major audience group within your organization. How can we meet them with what they need? What are their pain points? How can we serve them? What is it that's going to motivate them to the next action that we need them to take? What is their pain in their user journey? So I think slowing down and finding the right page for the right audience produces a higher yield.
Amanda, so you're probably familiar with this. It's been in the news a little bit, but GDPR is a big issue, and it's going to
Mm-hmm.
directly affect a landing page tactics and strategies as well. But can you explain a little bit about what that is and how it's affecting landing pages going forward?
Yes, GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, rolling out of the EU. The biggest change is now IP addresses and cookies are considered personal information. The purpose of these laws is to protect all of us as users, and the data potentially being misused. So we do believe this is something that will be adopted globally, but the EU is rolling it out first. And the way that it's going to affect most landing pages is a consent to cookie. It is not an implied consent in a privacy policy. It is a check. It is a click activation, and that we're using third-party cookies to enhance the experience, and that this is how the data will be used, and that's in your individual setup of how whatever tools you use with third-party cookies. But that user seeing a banner pop up and say, hey, we're using cookies, do you consent? And saying okay to that and providing clear links to the privacy policy would be one of the first things that the user sees on a front-end environment. The back end, it's how it changes how we handle data, how we hold data, so how we transfer data. So there's no unnecessary data that's collected and held. It is deleted immediately. It's not held in clouds. It's not held in hard drives. It is deleted immediately. But for the user, the biggest thing is we cannot engage you personally unless we get that consent to cookie.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Europe, for messing it up for everybody. Tell me a little bit about ways that people can not make it too obtrusive to where you're losing sales. Because again, until and I think it's what a lot of brands are probably afraid of at this point is somebody sees this pop-up message or sees a message and it scares them away, because there isn't, regardless of how much we as in the marketing community follow this trend and know there are a lot of people who are going to show up to pages over the next months, and it's going to take people a while to educate why is this pop-up coming up and why is somebody putting a big flag in front of me saying that they're privacy. It just scares people. So what are ways that people can minimize the impact without skirting the issue?
We are targeting EU users right now, but so much of the web is convention. Just like reading the book where the table of contents is in the front, or the way the magazine is set up, the web is set up in the same way. We get used to hamburger stack navigation, or navigation being across the top bar. I believe this will be fully adopted, and users are savvy enough. They're seeing it everywhere. Privacy policies are being updated and sent out. You're starting to see this on every site. Yes, we do believe it's going to impact engagement on the pages, but I believe that's a matter of time before it is a convention and it's adopted fully.
Tell me what you see. We put a lot of different content on landing pages today. Let's talk about social proofing as a
Mm-hmm.
validator. Tell me how you think social proofing is either helping or will grow to continue to help landing page optimization.
I do believe social proof is important in a landing page environment, especially for it can work in twofold. For someone who is not familiar with your brand, and social proofing helps gain visibility and credibility for that brand, and someone who is familiar with your brand but needs to hear from satisfied customers in the area. We have employed tactics in the past where it's like using social proofing with your neighbors, people that are near you, by using geo-targeting, that we can serve up social proofing with people that are in your area, and we find that to be effective. Social proofing is going back to the convention we just talked about. How many times are you looking for a restaurant or a hotel, and you're using social proofing yourself to vet out, is this a good option? And I think that is where it can push a user to the next action. They get this good information, but they're not just getting the information from the company alone serving it up to them. This is from a peer that's saying, I took the action and here's what it did for me, and I'm pleased with this service, and it's invaluable.
Talk about other forms of social proofing other than just those peers as well. I mean, let's talk a little bit, because social proofing to me is not only the influence where people assume the actions of others, have influenced them, but let's talk a little bit about supportive badges. Better Business Bureau is one that people are familiar with. Consumer Affairs is a well-known, consumer advocacy type
Okay.
badge. Talk about some of the values of those as well and how those can help enhance a landing page.
I think the combination of both peer credibility coming from social and industry credibility is important mix. It's like sitting by your friends who said, I've done this before, I think you're going to enjoy it, it's going to be a great service for you, but you're still on the fence. If you see a seal that we've been in business for 45 years, or we support these organizations, even if it is something that the company donates to, and you can start to understand their character and value more as a company. It starts to frame the people that they are going to be working with and supporting with their dollars that they're earning, and I think it really creates a holistic story. It's about purpose these days and value, more so than just getting, a product or service sold. So I think it really helps paint a more holistic picture with peer credibility, with industry credibility, that makes the user feel more confident to take the next step.
And I couldn't agree with you more on cause marketing. That's just, taking those badges that come from, world famous children's hospitals, for example,
Yes.
or something you donate to Humane Society, or any of those kind of badges can really go a long way to making endearing yourself to a brand, along with the peer credibility and the industry credibility. But let's talk about how landing pages have evolved. So much more is being consumed on mobile. That is a much different
Yes.
strategy than looking at a
Mm-hmm.
desktop. A lot of brands, have run all mobile, and then they forget that a lot of their own user base, maybe it's an older clientele, or somebody buying a
Mm-hmm.
higher end item, may lend more towards a desktop view. Let's talk about some of the tactics that need to go into a mobile versus a desktop approach and what's successful.
For mobile, I really do believe it is meeting them where they are. So many times, think about how we use our own mobile phones. We're in line for that coffee, and the thought hits, so I need to check on this. And it's just getting that page open to get the reminder for ourselves. Do they have time to sit there and read? They don't. I think it's engaging early in mobile. Trim it down. Don't give them so much visual distraction. Trim it down and keep them focused on what they're there, not what we want to tell them, what they're there to accomplish. So if we can trim it down, get them engaged early. I like the idea of self-selection on mobile because I can immediately target after that click. That is what I think is going to help them. People do need more information. Going to a big.com where there's so much information can be overwhelming. Again, using that landing page or microsite to distill it down to targeted topics is important. And I think you can tease them with that for mobile. And then a lot of times we see mobile users come in and they finish on the desktop. But I think you have to balance it. It's trim down, early engagement on mobile. That the savvy user, they're just looking for information, trying to get the next step in their own action. Whereas a desktop, people have more time to read and to get the information they need. So I think you need to have the content in both places. How it is displayed and consumed will be different from desktop to mobile.
Well, Amanda, thank you again for being on A Shark's Perspective. Again, I think you work in one of the greatest digital marketing forums right now, especially with landing page optimization, because it's kind of that you can grab every piece of content in the world to pick from, throw it on a site, test to see what works, drive a lot of traffic to it, come out with customers on the back end, and it's as valuable. And I know your team does a great job, a tremendous job in landing page optimization. So tell us, how do people get in touch with Full Cup Creative?
You can go to fullcupcreative.com and reach out to us there. There's a form, and call us, and we'd love to chat with you. We really believe that we are in a cutting-edge market and innovative. We believe that our background rooted in graphic design and creative really sets us apart from other optimization agencies because we can do a holistic approach of services. So, Kenneth, I just appreciate you having us on today. Thank you so much.
You bet. So there was my conversation with Amanda Simmons, the founder of Full Cup Creative. 3 key takeaways from the conversation that hit me were: first, landing pages have matured into a nurturing platform and work best when not just siloed. It's more than button color and hero image anymore. Remember that the confused buyer always says no, so think about the content and the alignment you need for a page to be successful. Optimize across channels. Second, you need to get to know your audience before anything else and become more customer focused. Your landing pages should give customers the opportunities to move to the next part of the conversation with your brand. Think about how this part of the funnel moves a consumer through the journey. Third, as Amanda told me, there's not an exact way or an only way to be successful when you're making a landing page. There's an art to the science, but there's also a science to the art. There are many different ways to make a great landing page, and she gave us some great perspectives on some great options to improve your CRO. Got a question? Send me an email to kenneth@asharksperspective.com or find me on LinkedIn. Sincerely, thank you for taking the time to listen to this show and our conversation regarding another one of the many components that make up marketing today. Have a tremendous rest of your day and join us on the next episode of A Shark's Perspective.